Hello everyone, Dr. David Perlmutter here. I have previously blogged about some research that was really quite exciting, and it showed that the higher level of physical fitness that we see in people, the higher was the level of the diversity of the bacteria that live within the gut. So higher levels of cardiorespiratory fitness is seen to correlate with a better or maybe a more healthy looking gut bacterial array. That's a correlative kind of understanding. The real question, I think, would be, would there be a change in my gut bacteria if I were to exercise? So that is what we call an interventional study, and I think it's absolutely a study worth doing, and fortunately it's been done, and that's what we're going to talk about today. The study is called Exercise Alters Microbiota Composition and Function in Lean and Obese Humans. Now, the purpose of the study, the authors created the study, is really geared at trying to understand, does in fact the intervention of exercise impart changes on the gut bacteria? Well, we certainly know that diet has a huge role to play. We've talked about that quite extensively. We know that exercise is associated with these changes, but is intervening by giving people exercise, is that going to have an effect? So these researchers who wrote this article that you'll see a link to explored the impact of 6 weeks of pretty intense endurance exercise on the composition, the array of bacteria, the functional capacity. In other words, what were these bacteria doing, and the metabolic output, what were these bacteria actually creating. And they looked at women. They looked at women, some of whom were lean and some of whom were obese, and they actually found some really interesting differences in comparing these two groups. So here's what they did. They examined 32 women, 18 of whom were lean, 14 of whom were obese, and across the board, prior to the study, these were individuals who were pretty much sedentary. So these are people who were not engaged in an exercise program. Some participated in 6 weeks of a supervised endurance-based exercise training program. In fact, they all were. But what was different was after that program, then they had 6 weeks when they were once again sedentary. And again, this was a pretty aggressive exercise program, got their heart rates up quite substantially. Afterwards, they, as I mentioned, got back into a sedentary lifestyle. And at multiple times in this study, they collected their fecal samples at the beginning of the study, after the 6 weeks of endurance training, and then following 6 weeks once again of being sedentary. And what did they find? First, they found some significant differences in the bacterial array that was actually induced by exercise, and that a lot of these changes were very much related to obesity status. They stated that exercise increased the fecal concentration of the important, what are called short-chain fatty acids. These are products that the gut bacteria are manufacturing, that the exercise portion of the study was associated with a significant increase in short-chain fatty acid production only in the lean individuals, not in the obese individuals. That the exercise-induced shifts in the metabolic output, what these bacteria are doing, actually paralleled the changes in the diversity or other measurements of the changes in the various organisms that were there, but specifically that these changes were related to the bacterial genes in the types of organisms that produce these short-chain fatty acids. Finally, the exercise-induced changes in the microbiota were largely reversed, this is very important, once the exercise training had ceased. Meaning that by and large there appear to be some important changes that are induced in the gut bacteria when individuals are engaged, well, females, I can't generalize based on this study, are engaged in vigorous aerobic exercise. By and large, these are very positive changes that we see. But importantly, that we lose those benefits once that exercise has been discontinued. So I think the take-home message is exercise. It's good for you. It seems to be good for the diversity of the bacteria and also for the products, the important health-related products that our gut bacteria produce, at least with respect to the short-chain fatty acids, which are in fact very important for health. I'm going to read to you the conclusion of the study. These findings suggest that exercise training induces compositional, meaning what it's made of, and functional, meaning how it's working, changes in the human gut microbiota that are dependent upon obesity status, independent of diet, and contingent on the sustainment of exercise. So at the end of the day, the take-home message is here, yes, exercise is good for you, good for your gut bacteria, but it looks as if, at least from the perspective of this research, that being non-obese is very, very important for these changes to happen in the most effective way in terms of allowing our gut bacteria to change in such a way that they will be able to produce more of those good things, the short-chain fatty acids. Hope you enjoyed this podcast. I think this is very interesting information. Thank you for joining me. That's all for now.